We're here every Wednesday at 6 p.m. to talk about legal issues around our states, United States, and just some of these local issues. And my co host is Marilyn Pierre, attorney at law, and Judge Claudia Barbara. We just love doing this because we love bringing information to the people so there's more understanding. And after understanding, there's always an action. Today, we're going to jump right into our local case here in Maryland, and that has something to do with Marilyn Mosby, our district attorney in Baltimore City, right?
Baltimore City.
Yeah, because it's
Yeah.
different between Baltimore County and Baltimore City. I
Yes.
don't I don't want to confuse anyone because there's a difference. So, if people haven't heard this around the country, around the nation, let's give them an insight, Judge Barber, what's going on first.
Well, in terms of the Baltimore City State's Attorney's Office, they call them state's attorneys, by the way,
Okay.
as opposed to district attorney, but they really mean the same thing
Okay.
because they're prosecutors. But the chief prosecutor in Baltimore City is called the Baltimore City State's Attorney. And it's had an illustrious history of predecessors, including Bert Moe, who became the mayor and who's now the president of the University of Baltimore. Also Pat Jessamy and Stuart Sims. So lots of good people as predecessors. But right now, Baltimore City State's Attorney Marilyn Mosby has successfully won 2 terms, I believe, as state's attorney.
She has.
And she came into office with oftentimes, when you get started into office, you don't know the danger or the explosive lawsuits that come up before you. But one of the key things that you can do as a chief prosecutor is you can make major policy changes to the office.
Okay.
And just like you see Larry Krasner, who is a Philadelphia district attorney, doing the same thing, I believe that the person that is a chief prosecutor has to have some compassion and understanding and experience with civil rights law and the injustices that happen that violates people's civil rights. You have to know their story. You have to, in some instances, either represent them or been through the experience to know and understand that there is lopsided prosecution when it comes to arresting people for drug offenses. It's just lopsided, So she has taken on the task of changing that policy dramatically by not the only way you can kind of try to level the playing field there is they say, hey, stop, we're not going to prosecute these low level offenses because you're just incarcerating people and just, building up the jail system.
And predominantly they're all black anyway.
Right.
So she says
she gets that. She definitely gets that. Yeah. I think she definitely gets that. So, her approach is, listen, we're not going to do these low petty stuff. And one of the things that has happened in recent, I'd say weeks, there's been a lot of inspector general types of investigations. And now there was a breaking news story, I'd say about a month ago, that there's a federal investigation. Now, first of all,
because that's a big jump to just go right to a federal investigation from an internal audit.
Everybody should be looking at this and asking, now, does this pass the smell test?
It does.
It doesn't. You're starting to get the picture here that the picture doesn't even look right because the federal prosecutor is not really in place in Maryland right now. So I'm like, okay, so who's behind all this? And secondly, there was a release by either the city solicitor or another official in the government that evaluated the situation after the Inspector General report that pretty much said that they were not going to go and pursue any type of
legal
action against Marilyn Mosby. So, to me, that should have been done and over with. But now you continue to see news stories, and you also have to ask yourself, what involvement does the press have in exploding the case or making an innocent person look bad? And I say that cautiously based on my personal experience, but to address it to give it again balanced perspective, there's a question about, okay, so there's some type of lien on a tax lien that is at issue, and then the fact that she owns Florida properties. So other politicians own properties. Just like they own more than one property. So I'm still waiting, to figure out why are they trying to zoom in on this.
So Marilyn, after reading the stuff that you come up with, what are your thoughts on this, on just the facts that you know so far?
Well, I want to go a little slower in terms of what she's doing, because I think it's phenomenal.
Okay.
They said that in January 2019, she announced that she would no longer prosecute individuals for marijuana possession cases, regardless of the amount. And she said that because of that, she would vacate 5,000 marijuana possession convictions. I mean, 5,000, nearly 5,000 marijuana convictions. I mean, that says a whole lot. And then in 2020, her policy was to not only don't prosecute those drug cases, but also not to prosecute prostitution, minor traffic violations, and other low-level
offenses.
Yeah, and she did that during the pandemic because she was hoping that the jails wouldn't be as crowded, therefore COVID-19 would not spread as much in the Baltimore prison. But that worked so well in terms of the more serious crimes not being decreased, that she decided that she was in March 2021, which is this one still, that she was going to make that policy permanent. And it is, I mean, I think it's revolutionary. And I think that's one of the reasons why there've been so many investigations of her. I mean, so many investigations. And we know from experience that when somebody at the top doesn't like what you're doing because you're basically proving them wrong, they start investigating you. I mean, they did it with Shirley Chisholm, doing it with Marilyn Mosby. They've done it with numerous other folks.
Sheila Dixon, Catherine Pugh.
Yeah.
So do you think this is do you think this is just a tactic that's being played, or this is something that is serious for them to do? Which is, or is this, are they synonymous?
Well, I don't think we will know at this point, but she's an elected official. Her husband is an elected official, and as elected officials, they have what do you call that again? The financial disclosure. Yeah, they have financial disclosures that they have to make. So if all those financial disclosures were okay, because nobody's going after them as far as I know for that. They're going after them for other things.
Well, let me start with the financial disclosure issue.
Okay.
There is a member of Hogan's cabinet who made it, and the story actually was reported by the Daily Record, that he did not report all of his stock or transactions or whatnot. And, the solution for that is to amend your financial disclosure statement.
Mm-hmm.
That's all
Nobody
you,
goes and investigates you just because of that. They say, hey, you forgot this. And then somebody said, oh yeah, I have so many, I forgot one.
Yeah.
Sorry, let me put it in there.
Yeah, so, but see, that's not the case for Dallas Dance or others. They go with those stories. They put them in the front page of the newspaper above the fold, make it look like the person committed a felony, and so on and so forth. But you got to watch news stories, and you cannot accept them at wholesale value, because they oftentimes there are a lot of intricate parts to the story that the full public does not know.
Mhm.
They don't know, because then, the newspaper doesn't tell you everything,
yeah.
you
So
know?
I was told by a drill sergeant once, and being in the military, this kind of goes back to something he says, and this was probably early in basic training. I'm going to always be able to find something. And I was like, so at one time, my next inspection, I had my whole crew up, the whole barracks. We were just jamming the whole night. It was incredible, right? So, I mean, all through the morning, we didn't even sleep on our bunks. We were so tight. We slept on the floor. It was a mess, right? The next morning, we were out on drill, and we come back, and our whole barracks was tore up because he found something, and I was just so pissed. And he brought me into the office. He goes, I'm telling you, if I want to find something, I find something. There's nothing you can do. And this seems like a case that anyone can find something on someone to bring it to some type of legal
Questionable.
questionable action that now shines a dark light on you.
A
Right.
dark light.
And that's it. And that seems like this is what's going on, period.
Well, see, I started getting um, uh, inclinations that some parts of media were fueling stories, deliberately fueling stories to make a story into criminal action or a lawsuit or civil action or something. And granted, there were failures in, let's say, former Mayor Catherine Pugh,
Okay.
but I resented wholeheartedly the press coming up with a story. Well, where are those books? And I went to a daycare center and I couldn't find those books. Well, who says a daycare center is supposed to keep the books on the spot for you to look at when you walk in the door? That's a crazy assumption, but they were feeding that story anyway. I checked that daycare center. They didn't have the books either. And I'm like, well, wait a minute. Are these people duty bound to even keep the book if they had the book? They're not asking those types of questions, and you're not getting that type of deep-seated analysis from the press. The press just focuses on that, the lack of accountability of the Healthy Holly books. And I didn't appreciate the way they were going after it.
Judge Barber, let me ask you a question. This is pretty much direct. Do you have the names of the press that you're referring to, or do you want to say?
I don't have the names of the people who wrote the stories,
right?
Because when I read, I don't always necessarily read who's the author of the story. Some authors I do know, but some of them.
I think we read so much that it's hard to sometimes remember where we got what information from.
It's true.
I know what you mean, but I think really a more important thing to discuss is the policies, because for years and years and years we've been told you have to be tough on crime.
Right.
We talked, we heard lots and lots of talk about the broken window theory. You guys remember what the broken window theory is? Where basically you investigate each and every possible commission of a crime, because that's supposed to keep violent crimes down. If you lock up the low level people, they won't be out there committing serious felonies.
That's just not true. It's impossible to think that.
Years and years, and basically Maryland most policy shows that that's not true. And I prefer to talk about that than to talk about those kinds of things, because if if, since she has shown that that's not true, then we need to figure out, well, why are so many people locked up for things that are not considered serious offenses? And then when you talked about how the drill sergeant could always find something, it reminds me that we have so many laws against things that I think they said that people commit 7 crimes a day or something like that, because I mean, just so many things that you can do is illegal. And
Well, that
like,
that also addresses the issue where the way they're targeting churches. That's way over
yeah.
the top, way over the top. And I say that because I've represented churches and their parishioners, and even I've had errors in tithe records that I had to go back to the church to correct. And I'm like, look, I got canceled checks to show that this was my contribution, and you shorted me by $3,000 or something, you know? So, I mean, sending bulldozing with a subpoena to the Union Baptist Church, or whatever church you're trying to go to make a case.
Mhm.
That, to me, that's what it is, making the case that there was some nefarious thing going on
Yeah.
with the charitable contributions that might have been on someone's tax return. That's trying to build a case or make something, but with a targeted intent to shame and see, the end result is that you're really trying to tear people down,
Right.
and tear down their legacy.
So
That's what you're really after.
So let's take this. Let's see if we can look through this looking glass a little bit further down the road. How easy will it be to remove her, even with all this, even if it is whatever they think it is? How easy or how hard is it to remove her?
Well, I think she's very popular in Baltimore City.
Right.
And the people who she represents knows that she's doing a phenomenal job for them.
Correct.
And I think her husband, being a council member in Baltimore City, he is also almost as popular as she is. So I think it would be a hard lift for them. But I think it's not necessarily to remove her. I think it's to distract her.
Okay.
Because the more you have to deal with these noises on the side, the less you're able to concentrate on what you need to do to basically get the phenomenal result that she's been getting.
Well, keep in mind that she is the state attorney that was in office during the Freddie Gray riots and the Freddie Gray death.
And we're coming up on that death when it happened.
And she is the one that boldly, and I say this courageously decided that his death could not be resolved by simply dismissing the fact that he died in police custody. She wasn't going to let that go. She was not going to let that go. And but that's significant, because that's a courageous prosecutor. And those are the types of prosecutors that you want to vote for. You want to vote for, because they're not going to sugarcoat, and they're going to go after wrongdoers. And just like, for example, the Baltimore City Police Commissioner who caught some sergeant arresting somebody frivolously. It was a fake arrest. He went to the cameras and said that sergeant was going to be prosecuted. You want those people in office.
Absolutely. You want them alive, because someone's going to come after them. Yeah.
Otherwise, if they weren't in office, it would have gone the other way. It could have gone the other way. It could have resulted in nobody being prosecuted in the Freddie Gray case, and nobody being arrested for conducting a fake arrest. And you have to establish a deterrent there that this is not allowed. This is not permissible conduct. No, you do not treat citizens of color as though they're subhuman or less than human. No,
Well,
you
we
don't.
have a
And that's clearly coming out in the George Floyd trial right now.
Right. I was just going to say that we have a George Floyd trial that's going on. If people are watching it, I have my feelings about it, but I want to hear yours, or do you want to hear mine? Because it's my feelings about it isn't good.
Well, before we move on to that, can we ask
Yes.
people what they have thought so far about our discussion about Marilyn Mosby?
Holly, is your hand up?
I don't know.
Okay, does anybody want to put in their 2 cents about her new policy, what they think of it? Now, I have to say that I think, Chicago also tried some of that and hasn't gotten the same results. But I think part of it as well is not only is she doing the policy that she is doing, but she's also doing some other things. For instance, she has a couple of programs that she does, which is one of them is aim to be more.
Yep.
Be apostrophe more. Where she helps people who might be involved in the criminal justice system for nonviolent offenses, help them get their lives together, and if they successfully complete the program, they have their records expunged, so they don't have to check that box that says that they were convicted of a criminal record. She has the Junior States Attorneys program where kids from middle school, I guess, come and learn over the summer how to join how to get into a career in the criminal justice field. She has a community day in court program where she tries to get people to build their faith in the criminal justice system, because and I think all of that has been helpful, being that a lot of people of color distrust the criminal justice system.
Yes.
And I think because of her legacy of being the granddaughter and the daughter of police officers, she's like, okay, you don't have to be afraid of the police. Yes, some of them are doing what they're supposed to be doing, but a lot of them are. So let's try to see what we could do to help the ones who are keep on doing what they're doing. And the ones who are doing what they're supposed to be doing, let's hold them accountable.
Ebony, you have a question? You want to say something?
Yes. Hello, everyone. Hi, Marilyn. I'm sorry, guys. I'm very tired, but I was able to make it to this meeting a little late. I guess my question is Marilyn? No. The candidate, is the candidate an incumbent or a new runner?
Marilyn Mosby, you're talking about?
Yes, Marilyn Mosby, yes.
Yeah, she's been in office for 6 years.
This is her second. Yes, this is her second term. I know. But
and this is she running on a new platform? Because I like the idea of trying to show the African American community that there are some good police meant to be trusted, because it's very deeply ingrained in some people from lower privileged communities, that they really don't like the idea of working with authority. And I was wondering, do we have any current ideas on how to dispel this sense of distrust with people that want to help them?
there is this trend going on in police departments now, some, not all, of educating police officers about community policing. Everybody's not, all of them, the entire force may not be accepting it, but community policing tends to be the new normal. But it's got to manifest itself by you and me and others, people getting involved in local elections, because the mayor is the one that decides who's the police chief. And you're involved with organizations that may want to have a seat at the table when the police chief is picked, then you might get better outcomes in terms of bringing somebody in that can bring in that element of community policing. And I just wanted to kind of briefly share that about a year or two ago, a news reporter, Jane Miller, I don't know if she's still with Channel 11 or not, but she was a guest at a Parent Mitchell dinner, and I believe it was 2018. And one of the things she was aware of is, yeah, you can have a diversified police force, but the culture has to change, because there is a constant reminder that Blacks get far more arrested and convicted of low-level offenses than their white counterparts. And she's seen it, and she knows it. That, yeah, white folks do drugs just like Black folks, but who's getting arrested the most?
Yeah.
That's a real issue.
So,
I find that Black people or people with darker skin tone, they're very easy targets. They don't know their rights. They don't know how to talk to the police. A lot of people, I don't like generalizing, but the people that I recommend talk to the police, they have trouble like regulating their emotions, and they get upset, and they start to say, oh, I don't snitch, I don't do this, and it's all these ingrained idiosyncrasies and stuff. And I'm just like, what are you talking about? It just sounds like that they're coming out of a 90s movie, like a Tupac movie or something. And I'm like, no, we have to change this mentality. But how can you change? I don't know.
Well, that's one of the reasons why we're having this program, because we want to educate people as much as we can about the criminal justice system and the world around them.
Well, some of the issues.
Hopefully, they could watch this program and learn a thing or two.
Well, some of the issues have to do with the fact that, I was watching at one time a conversation or a forum where there were Black police officers sitting in a room discussing some of the negative things that they have seen with their own eyes. And they acknowledge that they do not go after white males in particular. They're not stopped, because they figure that will result in a police call to the mayor. And that will result in some type of reaction that will cost them their jobs, and it will cost them some type of controversy or disciplinary action for that. So they pursue people who have low power or no power, to the extent that they racially profile Blacks, and some people, and they went as far, some officers went as far as to say that they were told to go and find somebody to arrest them, to make them stick for the crime, so those types of stories are told by police officers who are working on the force, who knows that the culture, who knows how they arrest people, and they get credit or they're considered more worthy for promotion based on the number of arrests that they make, and advancing in the police force with that type of record.
And we know this is going on. I mean, everybody knows this is going on. Now, my question is how as a people, we have to put more emphasis on the community being involved to stop this, because that's the only way I think we can stop this, is to write those people, write the judges, write your congressman, write your senator, write your delegates, right? We have to voice our saying that we are being heard. They may not read them all, right? It just seems like you're writing into the Milky Way. It just disappears. But it does have an effect when the voices come up and we speak. They do have an effect. Just like if we were to boycott, and to take business away from white businesses because Black people spend most of the money in the economy.
May
mean-
I say something again?
Yes.
I'm sorry to interrupt. Have you guys heard that in Mexico, it was about 2018, there was one day where every single woman, well, every woman that could, did not participate in the economy for like a week. They didn't go to work, they didn't purchase anything, and they disrupted everything. And the funny thing is they blacked out the whole event on the media. So I feel that, like, you know, if something happens again, we can use our power. We have more power than we realize. And it's very simple if we just work together. And I was talking to Judge Pierre about this, you know, like there is absolutely no sense of community in the Black community. So, you know.
And white people count on that.
It's something I want to start.
Soon to be, hopefully, from your mouth to God's ears.
Right. And you know, a lot of the policies that's happened in the Black community, the white majority counts on Black people being apathetic and not doing anything. And because it's more likely the truth. If
Okay,
you
see,
just
now
put-
I'm going to, I'm sorry to interrupt you, Judge Dyer. I don't agree that it is apathy. I think that there are just so many more things that we have to be concerned about that, you know, sometimes some things get on the back burner.
Mm.
Yeah, and don't let me start with my Maslow's hierarchy of needs again. But I think people are very much interested in what's going on, and if they had the brain cells to deal with that, and you know, and instead of having to deal with food, shelter, warmth, and
Yeah.
rest, they would.
Can we say it's both?
Just-
Can we say it's both? Because, you know, like, you know, if you're a mom and you got 3 kids, it's like, dang, I need to figure out how to take care of my kids. In the back of your mind, you're like, dang, I wish my government would help me, but you know, like, you know, you're thinking about it, but you don't have time to act on it. And
Mhm.
a lot of people are like, oh, like a lot of people my generation, they have the time to act on it, but they don't want to. So I think it's a mixture. It can be both. It's definitely a simultaneous thing. You know, like it's not black or white, you know.
Mhm. It's not black and white. It can be. both.
Yeah. I've spoken to so many people and they're like, oh, I didn't know I could do that. That is so simple.
Mhm.
And I was like, okay, you can go tomorrow. I'm like, yeah, I will. Never go. Never hear back from them ever again.
Yeah,
Like,
that-
wasn't it your day off? Aren't you unemployed? Don't you want to change your life? Like, oh, I didn't think it would matter. Yeah, all right. That's apathy to me, Marilyn.
Well, and there could be some of both with some people, but I just don't like the blanket statement that it's apathy, because
Blanket
some
statements
people,
are
they
hateful.
just don't have the knowledge, and if they were given the knowledge, they could find maybe a minute to take care of that matter.
What do you think we could do to help Marilyn Mosby? Can we? I know we could invite her to show our support, let her know that we're behind her and support her, and know making sure she doesn't feel like she's all alone. We can do that.
And we could also, you know, congratulate her for doing such a great job, just so she knows that there are people out there who are paying attention, who are supporting her policies.
Mike Tabor.
Well, I think it would be interesting to have her on the show. So we could, if she would, so we could interact with her, talk about her problems, and ask her what we could do to help support her.
That'd be good. I mean, I don't have that. I don't have that kind of connection to call her, or would she take my phone call? That's but she's busy. So-
Well, you'd be surprised because, okay, well, I will call her office and see if I could get through and see what happens there.
But wouldn't the interesting question be, how many other states' attorneys are supporting her? Is she, I asked this in the chat, is
Yeah.
she too much of a challenge for them? Or, go ahead.
Yeah, Holly, I saw your question on the chat and I kept my eye on it because I really wanted to answer that
Mhm.
question. I thought Claudia had a really good, yeah, Rhoda, do you want to go ahead and answer that question? Because you started by addressing that same question about what other state
states'
attorneys
attorneys.
are doing across the country.
Oh, they are doing the same thing as far as low-level offenses. Actually, the Larry Krasner, who is a civil rights, has a background as a civil rights attorney. He is doing the same thing. He's evaluating the cases and he's not going after low-level offenses because, you know, it's bad when you have a system where there is an uneven application of the laws. And in Philadelphia, the prosecutor, he's running again. He's trying to go for his second term. He has decided that certain low-level offenses, they're not going to, you know, continue to prosecute. And see, there's also an uneven application of laws when it comes to prostitution
That's a-
arrests. How is it that you're arresting the woman? Isn't that a two-party transaction?
I
Yeah.
have a question about that. I have a very important question about that. How do we plan on changing that? Like, what exactly is her platform on that? Because if he does win, that's actually very important to me as well. Like, how can we, I don't know, like even decriminalizing, I don't think decriminalizing prostitution is enough.
Well, Ebony, what we're saying is that, sorry to interrupt you, but what we're saying is that she has won and
Yes.
she has actually put those policies into effect,
Fact.
like she said she was going to. And she has gotten very good results. That's why we're talking about her, because she's won, she kept her word, and she has stopped prosecuting low-level crimes, marijuana possession, prostitution, some traffic offenses. She has done that. Now she has aggressively also gone after felony offenses because she says, hey, these are the people we should be putting away. So instead of going after the low-level crimes, she says, you know what, I am going to concentrate on the people who cause real harm to our community. And so
let me add something to this. I am highly offended when I see an uneven application of the law anywhere. And see, those are the injustices that I believe Dr. King was speaking about. Dr. Martin Luther King spoke. You know, when you're silent, you're complicit in this.
Yes.
And this is the important message that needs to be driven home. There should never be an uneven application of the law like that. You should be policing white communities the same way you police Black communities. If you got that wrong, then we're in an unjust society. To the extent that you have that problem and it's prevalent is of great concern. Because one of the things that also came to my attention, and everybody didn't see it this way, when that Philadelphia Starbucks boycott story came through, I was bothered by that. And I decided personally myself not to continue to do business with Starbucks.
I don't.
Personally myself, and I don't. And the reason why is because those who got arrest records.
Yes.
Let's stay focused here.
Yep.
They got arrest records.
Whether they got out or not, they've been arrested.
And, having a diversity training seminar and get it over with and done with. They got arrest records. And see, that's the major harm. And that's the thing that's bothersome to me.
And people got to realize, even if things change, people have a record that's staying with them for something they're like, and you can't explain that to a job that just sees you have a record. You can't say, well, it was, I was a low-level crime and I should have never, it was a wrongful arrest. You can't write that.
It goes deeper than that.
Yeah, right. But you can't write that on an application.
That arrest record. People who have been arrested
to
spend time, they've lost time from their jobs, and they possibly have lost their jobs.
Yeah.
It's not just a lost day. They could have possibly lost their jobs because of the arrest.
Yep.
Exactly. And at that point, you can't even have a public defender because you haven't been charged with anything yet. So you have to go out of your pocket to get them. And Ebony, I see your hand up, but I just want to just add one more thing before I go to you. I think as well what people don't know is that Starbucks uses prison labor. I mean, I
That's true.
stopped going to using their stuff, I mean, years before, because I don't want to support any company that uses prison labor. And they use prison labor to make their straws and their
Straws.
cups, and I don't know what else, but the fact that they use prison labor was enough for me. And so,
Well, it's not, we
Ebony?
should never be dismissive about that and the impact that arrests have on people's lives. You know,
Yes, that's
only
true.
a few amount of states have banned the box legislation that has passed and
Mhm.
that have been enacted into laws. But to the extent that you have destroyed a person's future
Mhm.
employment opportunities,
Mhm.
and you have cost them their career,
And
you know,
family.
that you know, those impacts are long felt, or you've caused them to unnecessarily get involved in litigation to vigorously defend themselves.
Mhm.
And then you have to bank on getting the right judge. You have to
Mhm.
bank on getting a fair and an impartial judge that's not going to assume that you're in the wrong just because of the color of your skin.
And
You-
also the emotional trauma.
Yes.
Because even if, they bring you in and then they decide not to do anything and they say, okay, you could go. I mean, the trauma of having to sit in the back of the police car, the trauma of having to be handcuffed. And yeah, so there's a whole lot there. But I did say to Ebony that I was going to, okay, Ebony, sorry, thank you for your patience.
Well, I started with one question, and now I have three questions. Okay, so first question, where can we find the information about which companies use prison labor? And the next question is, are there programs for felonies in Maryland or Montgomery County to get help for like getting jobs or unemployment benefits? And then what was my original question? Oh crap. Something.
Well, the answer.
Oh, well, let's start with those two first.
The answer is yes. They are getting help. There's programs out there that I know we're particularly involved in. We know Joshua. He's very involved into helping prisoners get jobs and stuff like that. And he's the freedom fighters out of Baltimore. And you can look it up online. It's public record of who uses prison labor. So just do the once you have the question. I like your thinking. Now it's time to find the answer. The answer is yes. Now it's time to do the research because it's not going to be easy just given to you.
Okay, it's just that
Okay,
I've been
well,
doing a lot of
sorry.
research. Like,
I did,
okay.
Ebony, I decided to
feeling-
start you off. I mean, I just like Dr. Dyer said, I just put the information in there, companies that use prison labor in the United States and 12 major corporations. And you see it started off with McDonald's,
Yep.
which I haven't used, Wendy's, I didn't, then you have Walmart, you have Starbucks, Sprint, Verizon, Victoria's Secret,
But the bigger,
Fidelity Investments, J.C. Penney, and Kmart Airlines and Avis. Oh, sorry, American Airlines and Avis. So it's like a who's who of corporations in this country.
But you have to get people to do action, and it's kind of like one of those things when the last president that left. There was this different companies and corporations and restaurants that support the president that left, and there were still people on those Chick-fil-A lines. Unreal. I mean, you're like you don't like the president that's in office, you want him out, but the money you giving Chick-fil-A, they're writing to his PAC, the money that he uses to run for office. So you're actually helping the person you want to get out of office because you like their chicken sandwich.
Well, yeah, and the owner of Chick-fil-A is just so homophobic that I thought that people who support that cause would not want to. But even somebody I know who is, LGBT decided that, hey, those chicken sandwiches were worth it.
I'm
Okay.
okay. I just
It's like, what can you do? Some people like those chicken sandwiches and they like that coffee and they like that Big Mac.
Hey.
And yeah.
I'm not going to enslave myself over food or things like that. But so as we come to a close here, you be the judge. We're here every Wednesday on Bridges Live. The question that we have here is Marilyn Mosby. We know that she's been treating unfair. We know that this investigation is attacking her. We also know that there's news media that is trying to spin it that she is some type of this nefarious crook for some reason of because she has another home. Like that even sounds ridiculous. I can't believe you have another home. You were trying to hide it. No, wasn't trying to hide it. It's public record. So, and we also know that how much she's been doing in Baltimore City.
Well, I again go back to the information I provided early on. And my concern again here is the fact that a lot of this is what I call tear down
Yes.
people, by any means necessary. The one, for example, the one situation where they're just zeroing in on properties and whatnot, that's just something that they don't do to other people who own properties in Florida or wherever they own them. But the tear down the legacy is so that when they leave office, you're not creating a statue for her, or you're not memorializing, her contributions with a street named in her honor. You're not doing all that because, her legacy is tarnished with these negative news stories. And people again are doing it as a way to attack people's reputation.
Yeah, can we address the questions in the chat? Because Holly had a question and Ebony had a response.
What's the question, Marilyn?
Well, the question that, Holly, do you want to ask a question or do you want me to read it?
Well, sure, isn't the larger question, what do you do about unequal treatment? I mean, we're talking about one state's attorney, but how do we evaluate whether the same thing is being done in every county, every jurisdiction, and we're not even considering that?
Well, yes, there are police records that they keep. The police keep crime statistics. They always have. And they're a matter of public record, and we can get those public records through a Maryland Public Information Act request. So yeah, they have information, and if you go to, let's say, a retired police officer, they can look at those records and tell you whether you have all the records or what records are missing. And they can give you better guidance on who was frequently stopped and who was not stopped. So once you present that hard data to the police chief, as an organization, you go to them, meet with the mayor quarterly or with the police chief quarterly and say, this needs to change. This needs to not happen. Where you're doing strip searches in certain communities with low income or public housing, and you're not doing strip searches in other communities when you're stopping a car for a minor traffic offense. So
I think a good way. So the question is basically asking, how do we get to the roots of the problem? And I think we need to start broadcasting that we must stop being dehumanized and stigmatized and demonized, and really show the rest of the country that we are also people. Like, we're people, treat us like everyone else. We've always been the scapegoat, and we're continuously being the scapegoat for different reasons.
But see, to me, that goes directly to an ingrained culture that police officers have, and sometimes people have in the workforce. They can be overbearing, overly critical of our work, and sabotage our status or our reputation with our employer for whatever reason.
And it just has to be said. It doesn't even have to be true. It just has to be said.
Right. It just has to be said. exactly right. Yeah. And that's the thing that needs to change.
But I know that I interrupted you about the George Floyd question, so let Mitune ask his question or make his statement, and then after that, we could go to George to talk about George Floyd. I'm sorry, I thought we'd be able to get back sooner.
Mithun,
you wanna
Mithun has his
ask-
hand up. Mithun has his hand up.
Yeah, that's why.
Okay.
Yeah,
Good
go
evening,
ahead.
everybody. Thank you very
Good
much.
evening.
Sorry to miss last 2 weeks and sorry for the late. But I just wanted to say one thing. I have been a witness for Miss Mosby's team has taken up a case where I was been a witness. And I must say that I was extremely pleased with the office of Miss Mosby's, how she has treated me and treated me as a witness, state witness. And I think she way better than Montgomery County State Attorney's Office. And I think she's wonderful. Her behavior, she given me a letter and everything. She was so nice. I don't know why they are trying to target her. Only reason I think she has had the guts and the spine to bring charges against those officers, okay, police officers. So I saw that. I said it's totally unnecessary. I think her office is doing a fabulous job. To my personal experience, what I have had a couple of years back. And unfortunately, it's true that there are a lot of person of color, when they have a higher office, they get targeted. And I believe they might be one of the reasons. I don't know that, but I guess that's my best guess will be. Because when a person of color get into the higher office, they are always a target of this kind of discrimination and this kind of attacks.
Any more questions, Marilyn?
I don't see any more questions. Liz is leaving us. Oh, sorry, Liz. We miss you already.
But thank you
And
very much
now-
for the opportunity.
Thank you,
Thank you very
Mitchell.
much, all of you. Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you. So you guys wanted to discuss what has been happening.
Well,
and-
to me,
There's another person with their hand up, Doris Walker.
Oh, sorry, Doris, I didn't see that. Doris, you could come on. You have the mute on. So, okay, there you go.
Oh, hi, how you doing? And I also apologize for being late. I was in the store. But well, it's an interesting discussion. I do think that I don't know who the last speaker was, but he was absolutely on point with talking about how, Black officials are targeted. Black public officials are targeted. And Marilyn Mosby, I really think that one of probably the best way, at least in terms of providing support, public support, is to talk about the policies. And there's been some discussion here, but to talk about how those policies, which are going to significantly affect arrest and prosecution of minorities, because they're going to be overwhelming minorities, and as Claudia mentioned, prostitution, they could pretty much all women, and so to really highlight what a difference that she will make, that she is making by those bold decisions in terms of how that's going to affect the lives and the statistics in terms of who has to answer and who is who is targeted by the criminal justice system. The other thing I want to mention, and I know Marilyn knows about this too, because the other thing I keep screaming about is the foster care system. And how I mean, in that court, it is, I'm going to say, roughly 80% minority. It's
Really high.
it's all Black people and poor white people. Okay, and some brown people, but there are no wealthy white people in that system
at all.
Period.
Yeah.
Period. And the attack on Black families that happens in that system, that starts from the stuff with spankings, what constitutes, because that's the other thing that they are now prosecuting, and they've been doing this for a while, prosecuting people for, whipping with a belt. Well, my goodness, half my neighborhood would have been gone if that was the standard when we were growing up. And so, that's another area that I think is so significantly affected by that has such an effect on Black families, because that's what it's really doing. It's really partially the destruction of the Black family.
That's exactly right,
so,
Doris. It's really targeting the Black family, because the Black family is the one who does the spanking. And they know that. So they target them, they give them that record, and they charge them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so, I guess in summary, my thought about Marilyn Mosby is that if there's any kind of show of support, that it's some kind of real full-throated acknowledgement of how impactful her policies are going to be, have been, how bold she has been in terms of seeking racial justice, and
let me ask
just
you,
to
let me
stay with
ask
me.
all you guys this who listens to the radio. Have you heard a positive support for Marilyn Mosby on the radio, on any station, on any program?
I don't know anybody in the judicial system. I've never heard of any judge. I've never heard of any anybody. No. So no, we don't hear anything about this. Nobody knows.
What about those? Was a Rush Parr show that's in the morning. Have you heard anyone that's giving positive information or positive light to Marilyn Mosby? Because I know I haven't, and I listen to a lot of more radio than I do TV, and I just haven't heard anything. Maybe I'm wrong. So that's a question.
We have to do it ourselves. How many of you have your own Facebook or Instagram account? We just do it ourselves.
Hey, Mark, you were going to say something, Mark?
So, good evening, everyone. Mark Pleasant here. This morning on Joe Madison, Sirius XM, he had an interview with State's Attorney General Mosby.
That's good.
And no. State's Attorney Marilyn Mosby. The Attorney General is Brian Farsh.
Thanks for the correction.
No problem. Anytime. Correct me when I'm wrong. So.
She spoke, and it was sensational.
Mm-hmm.
She spoke to the rationale of data as to all of the reasons for removing different cases from coming into the court system. Mm-hmm. It was very powerful, and it was all based on the data, percentages, numbers, details. I wished I could have had something recording that. So I don't know if it's repeatable or playable, but if you have access to Sirius XM, she spoke this morning, and it absolutely works.
It made sense.
Yes.
Mark. Oh, sorry, Mark. I know you can't see it because you're driving, but Ebony wanted to know what the program was, and you said Sirius FM. Sorry, but what is the name of the show? I think you said Joe Madison.
The Black Eagle.
Yeah,
the Black Eagle.
That's Joe Madison.
Joe Madison. The Black Eagle.
All right. So.
And the station was. I think my phone is holding it, but I can't see it right now.
Was it the Urban Channel?
116 or something like that. My phone is connected to my car.
Well, let me throw in that Joe Madison is the one with whom I protested with a group of people. It was the Prince George's State's Attorney. Every week we protested against his nefarious actions.
Really?
Who was the State's Attorney in Prince George's County at that time?
I wish I could tell you. I got it.
was it Alexander Williams?
No,
Was
no,
he
no,
left?
no. Yes,
Oh,
he was.
before, yeah,
After, no, after Alex Williams.
oh, after Johnson?
Tell me his first name.
Oh gosh,
That's
what
like-
was Johnson?
Problem is I forget these names.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. He was unbelievable.
Is it John Johnson?
Was
Who
it Jack-
that?
Jack
Jack
Johnson?
Of
Johnson.
course it was. Of course
Yeah,
it
okay,
was.
yeah, Jack
He
Johnson.
it was outside his office. He never made an appearance. He never showed up. Never. I can't tell you how many weeks. And, you know, I guess he probably outdid us. I don't know, but he didn't get the point.
Well,
I have a
Joe,
suggestion.
Joe,
I have
Joe
a
made me
suggestion.
say
Why don't we just send a letter to Miss Mosby's office, signing all of us, full support to her. And also if there is an appointment we can get to her, we can meet her in person and thank her for the wonderful job that she is doing. If we can do that as a support for her work. I'm just
That's a-
suggesting if I can possible.
yeah, that's a
Alright.
great idea. Somebody said that we should attempt to try to get her on this program. So I'm going to call her office to see if we could try to get her on this program. And I know that there's at least one other elected official from Montgomery County who says that he would come to our program. So I can't announce his name or the date yet because we have not finalized everything, but I'm hoping that, you know, we would be able to get him as well.
Well, I'm glad we are showing our support for Marilyn Mosby. We do know what's going on. We say, like Judge Claudia Barber says, the smell test it doesn't pass, right? It's something's rotten in the state of Denmark. So we'll try to get a hold of Marilyn Mosby. Write the letters though. Do send it to her office. That is helpful because we don't want her to feel like she's all alone. And we will keep her in office, and we will weather the storm. Also, we do this show to have these conversations so you can be informed, you can understand, and this way you can take the action of writing the letters, raising your hand, looking deep into those questions and getting those answers saying, this isn't right, because that's what we're doing for the public. And that's why we do this show, You Be the Judge. Marilyn, before we take off, and then we'll go to, no, I know Judge Barber, you have to leave real quick. So anything before we leave? We'll see you next week.
See you next week.
Okay.
Hi,
And
Judge Barber. Thank you for joining us. Oh, and I just wanted to say that tomorrow morning, I am going to be on Light of the Round Table.
okay.
And we are going to be discussing Marilyn Mosby. We're going to be discussing the state representative in Georgia who was arrested for knocking on Jack
The
White
door.
Kim's door, you know, all those kinds of things. So hopefully
Cannon.
people will be able to watch us on Facebook. I don't have the link yet, and I'm not supposed to get it until like
Tomorrow.
really early in the morning. So as soon as I get it, if you guys are interested, I could send it to you. But it's
Oh, yeah.
7:30 in the morning.
And I want you to
We'll-
mention,
We'll be there.
I want
Okay,
you,
good.
and Marilyn, don't leave. You have to mention the award you just received. Let everybody
Oh.
know. Come on.
Oh yes, I forgot. Well, Dr. Dyer was kind enough to nominate me for Empower She-Rolls of Montgomery County. The Lanks Patuxent River section, you know, we're the ones who were awarding it, and they chose me as their private sector representative.
Yeah.
So thank you very much, Dr. Dyer, for nominating me. I really appreciate it. They had a very beautiful program that over 130 people attended.
Mhm.
They said that they're going to edit it and send us the link. So if anyone's interested, I could send you the link for that as well, so you can watch it.
Hearty congratulations, well deserved, Miss Marilyn.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Mithun. I really appreciate it. Thank you all for your support and all your encouragement.
And we will see everybody next week.
Yes.
You Be the Judge, 6 p.m. You guys have a blessed evening.
Thank you very much. Bye,
Thank you.
everyone. See you next week.